on an interview on the road, he's typing it up on a MacBook Pro. He's phoning in his MacBook and his iPhone. It's the whole sort of culture, the whole mindset is Apple, Apple, Apple. And then you've got a lot of Microsoft people at the top. I mean, let's face it, the BBC are a monopoly, the status quo, where they're very, very out of date. They don't produce anything close to value for money. They've been there far too long. They've been entrenched far too long. The last thing people that get pay their mortgages from working with one of these status quos is to rock the boat too much and start asking questions to try and unseat another status quo, like Microsoft, because it might start backfiring on them and say, hang on a minute, we've been used to Microsoft for 20 odd years, we don't really need it. What's this BBC rubbish? We've had that for 70 odd years. Do we really need that now? And that's Rory up the wazoo looking at his mortgage going, how do I get the mortgage if I'm not getting paid by a monopoly, if people aren't going to jail to pay my mortgage?
I mean, let's look at it in context as well. When we say paying for the BBC, you're actually paying to receive a signal. So even if you didn't watch the BBC and had no intention of ever viewing any of the programs on it, you're paying the license fee in order to have the honour or the privilege to receive a television signal, which is previously already there in the ether, ready to be taken anyway. I think the licensing fee, and this is probably a discussion for another time, which will be very, very, very interesting, is an outmoded concept now. I think we can look beyond that. Just very briefly, can I just mention something I saw on Sky Television on an advert recently? It was one of these public service announcements. I don't know whether this is restricted to Sky Television only and anybody part of the Sky network, but it was in relation to product placement. And the warning notice or the notification said that any TV programs which had product placement in them would have to have disclaimer at the beginning and at the end with some sort of little symbol or something like that. Now, I didn't know whether that was a general rule for all television product placement now, or whether it was just something that was being run by Sky Television. Roy or Gordon, do you know anything about this?
I don't know, but I would imagine that would be... I know there's a lot of changes that product placement is being allowed, and different networks have different minutes, different amounts of minutes that they can do it, and how by law that they can do it. But I would think that would be, they would all have to do it, regardless of whether it's Sky. Even the BBC, I believe, are allowed to do it. But again, they've got to make it clear that it is product placement. And the idea behind it, as far as getting, because when people say, oh, all you'll get is wall-to-wall adverts, like a program devoted to promoting tools, which could be the X Factor, So I borrowed that joke from somewhere else.
I think very timely. One thing I was going to say is, first of all, it's interesting to hear Sky's covering these things because, as you probably know, Rupert Murdoch owns part of the channel, and he basically sells his interests in terms of not necessarily advertisements, but interests and propaganda and things like that. So even things like the oil industry, in the case of, you probably know, in Fox News, it has been leaked that they actually instruct the reporters to spread some uncertainty about the global warming. And this isn't to do with science, this isn't to do with reporting, it's to do with just this is the agenda we have to spread uncertainty about that. And that's just to do with some interest that they sell. It can be worth lots of billions if you can change public perception with access to, 50 million people in the United States. And the second thing I was going to say is I spoke to a cousin of mine about 3 days ago, and he was on the radio recently, and he was asked by the guy who was running the radio channel to insert a product mention which he didn't want to do. Basically, he resisted the offer to use the show. He was talking about, he works in the area of actually helping children with disability and learning, and he was asked, they basically did a show about it, but the way they did the show to make it kind of profitable, whatever, was to try and sell something, okay? But the listener doesn't know that. I was very surprised he told me that. I didn't realize they were quite serious about taking a professional person who's managing an institute that's to do with that and trying to encourage him to mention a company's product just because he goes on a show. and this is what they do. This is how apparently radio that's profitable, or Fox News is, I think that's the most watched channel or news channel or something in the United States. Now you would think they would choose things by accuracy, but apparently they just get chosen by who knows what. Maybe what people want to hear and maybe what gets the most advertising, most lies. They usually say, and that's just a general saying, is you don't get paid to say the truth. Sometimes you do get paid to say the truth, but you won't be paid as much as saying the outrageous or changing the perception about the truth. So when people know certain things, like they know there is a problem with the climate, if you can change their perception, encourage them to carry on using lots of oil, there is going to be somebody extremely happy about you changing this perception, and probably will be happier for you to miseducate people than to educate people. And this is what happens.
Yeah, on the I've read a little bit about old Roop has been given the go ahead to go and buy Sky and whatever, but apparently one of the conditions is that Sky News become independent or editorially independent from his interests, so he can no longer influence that. But then again, that Sky News is only one of his news channels. And as far as I don't watch Sky News. I've seen it occasionally, and it seems to be around the same kind of quality as you would expect from the BBC and ITV and whatever, just with adverts. Doesn't seem to be all that bad to me. The one that's really doing the damage is Fox News. I mean, that's a whole fantasy channel. And Rupert Murdoch owns that, among others. So it's only one channel that they're being forced, as far as I can make out, it's only one channel that they're being forced to be editorial independent. So
I'll just tell you a story. I heard from a person who lives in Australia, and this really, really shocked me. I couldn't find any corroboration on the internet. I couldn't find any way of verifying these claims, but he said that Murdoch had to escape Australia from he was going to go to jail for these things. Did you know anything about it? And apparently he hasn't set foot in Australia in a very long time because of threats of him going to jail. Is this true? I'm not sure.
Maybe he should then be sympathising with Julian Assange.
Yes.
Yeah, who by the way cited him as the person who was willing to stand up in some way, which I found very strange because Assange is very critical of Fox News, which is the main channel which calls for its assassination. But he was citing Murdoch as the person who was like the brave Australian who was willing to stand up to, I think it was actually the father of Murdoch, of Rupert, who was talking about I think that the fights back then in Turkey, where they basically sent lots of Australians to fight against, basically to be slaughtered by the Turks or something. He was using the image of Murdoch as his kind of a role model to defend his own cause. I just find it really strange, but.
Well, we've now gone past the hour mark. Just very briefly on the subject of television, just want to throw one in for people to check out, although I'm sure a lot of you already have. Over on Torrent Freak, there's a very nice article about a national TV station that's aired a pirate's version of The Hurt Locker. People might remember The Hurt Locker came into the news recently in regards to clamping down on alleged copyright infringers sharing their material. There was a lot of outspoken people, but now it appears that a national TV station has aired a pirate version of it. So there's one for a little bit of a chuckle. What I'll do, if it's okay with both of you two, because Roy's been very good in putting off his move for a couple of hours in order to do the show, we'll crack on with the ending track. Roy, Gordon, are you both happy with that? And I'm getting silence. Yes,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So what I'll do before we go over to the ending track, just apologise to everybody for the delay and also for the shorter episode this time round. Like I say earlier, it was my fault. Hopefully after this week, next weekend, we'll go back to some sort of resemblance of normality. Gordon has got a very quick point to make regarding the TechBytes. Sorry, let's start again. Gordon has a point to make about the show's site. So, Gordon, I'll put it over to you first, and I'll introduce the final track.
Yeah, the first thing is we're introducing the outtakes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, this is proof that the show's not cut, because that bit won't be taken out. So, go through, Gordon.
Right. I had built the site before. It was kind of almost ready. I built it in Drupal 6. I changed my web host, and I've decided I'm a little bit undecided when I'm rebuilding. I need to rebuild it anyway. I'm thinking about rebuilding it in either Drupal 6 or Drupal 7. There's issues with the themes and the modules and things to be sorted out. Possibly even